Mali rebels kill over 80 Wagner mercenaries and take over 15 captive. This is huge news, especially for somebody who was in a combat zone against Wagner, and I figured it's something that a lot of you guys might like to hear about too, so let's talk about this. Found a couple news articles I want to read off of here. It says, on Saturday, July 27th, the convoy of Malayan army and Russian auxiliaries from the Wagner Group was ambushed by pro-independence rebels from the Strategic Framework for the Defense of the People of Azawad, or the CSPDPA. That's obnoxious acronym. They need to work on that. In a town straddling the border between Mali and Algeria. So this is a super dynamic and honestly pretty confusing situation here. Apparently, the military regime in West Africa had turned towards Wagner and asked for help in 2021, seeking support in fighting the jihadist and separatist forces, who we know as the long acronym name CSPDPA. So a little background on what's going on in Mali. It was basically a government uprising of sorts. During this uprising, multiple groups of these jihadis who also have ties with Al-Qaeda. This was back in 2021, and the Malayan government knew that they were in trouble, they were under attack, they were outmanned and outgunned by all of these uprising groups, all these rebel groups. So they contacted the Wagner Group, which used to be the Russian-based mercenary group. So Wagner and the Malayan government have joined forces to basically help defend the government from all of these jihadi rebel groups that have risen up and they're trying to overthrow the government. And on July 27th is when this big battle occurred. Now they're calling this the Battle of Tinzaouaten, right here. Sorry for the pronunciation. I'm gonna read off the Wiki page here. It says, was a battle between the Tuareg Rebel Coalition, the CSPDPA, and the Malayan Armed Forces, backed by the Wagner Group, a Russia state-funded mercenary group. We already talked about that. From my understanding, I watched a few different YouTube videos, and I'll link some of the ones that I saw that I'm using some of the information from. I'll link some of the comments below. This guy, Preston, really knows his shit, so I'll link his channel. From my understanding, and feel free to correct me in the comments below, because I know you will anyways, there was a firefight between these rebel groups and then the Wagner Group and the Malayan government. During this initial first engagement, the rebel groups actually took multiple casualties and they started a retreat. And this is the crazy part. Apparently at this time, there was a sandstorm that was rolling into the area. So this sandstorm actually acted somewhat as like a smoke screen. So these rebel forces were able to retreat successfully and call for reinforcements. The Wagner Group and the Malayan army were not able to pursue the fleeing rebels because of the sandstorm. They were also not able to see all these rebels mustering a force of over 1,000 soldiers. So the Malayan army, backed by the Wagner Group, are regrouping, rearming, basically celebrating their small victory against another group of rebels. What they didn't know was behind this sandstorm, these rebels were gathering a huge force for a counterattack or an ambush. Then when this massive force of rebels re-engages the Wagner Group and the Malayan army, this is what's known as the Battle of the Tinzaouaten. This is where I got the numbers that I mentioned at the beginning, where the rebels claim to have wounded 84 Wagner mercenaries and 47 Malayan army soldiers. Although Russian telegram sources say that there was only between 20 to 80 casualties in KIA. But we also know from previous experience, the Russians like to lie and change the real numbers of their wounded and KIA soldiers. Apparently after this ambush and the rebels took the victory over the Malayan army and the Wagner Group, they started taking pictures, posting to social media, sharing on their Telegram and Signal groups. Now, something that's extremely interesting to me is that Andrei Yusov, the spokesperson for Ukraine's military intelligence service, otherwise known as GUR, suggested that the Ukrainians have been collaborating in a way, without giving specifics, collaborating with the rebels in a way to help them push back the Wagner presence in Mali. And to validate the suggestion by the Ukrainian spokesperson, the rebels in Mali that beat Wagner and the Malayan army took a picture holding up a Ukrainian flag after the victory. Not only this, but they made a post on X thanking Ukraine for their support in the efforts of pushing back Wagner and the Malayan army, but also letting Ukraine know that they have multiple Wagner captives that they want to give over to the Ukrainians. This whole situation is absolutely absurd to me. Being an American, when you hear the words jihadi mixed with Al-Qaeda, you do not consider that to be a good group of people. I guess the phrase, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, is the perfect way to explain the situation. Now, in my experience being in Ukraine and being on the front line, we heard a lot about the Wagner Group. We also saw a lot of videos of the Wagner Group. Even bringing up the name Wagner in certain areas of Ukraine felt like you were saying Voldemort in Hogwarts. Everybody hated Wagner. And it looks like other groups of people feel the same way as the Ukrainians about the Wagner Group in other parts of the world, like these Mali rebels. Being in the International Legion in Ukraine, the best way I can describe it, felt like we were the Jedi version of mercenaries. The Wagner Group was the Sith version of mercenaries. In the International Legion, there was definitely people there for self-gain, just for the money, maybe just there for war prizes, whatever it was. But from learning a lot about Wagner the last couple of years, it seems like the majority of their mercenaries are all like that. They're all bad guys. Criminals, cons, drug addicts, murderers, rapists. These are all the types of people who I've heard are in the Wagner mercenary group. I'm not naive to think that the entire group is like that, but overall I've just heard an overwhelming consensus that the Wagner group is a bunch of dirtballs. I'm not going to say I'm happy that a bunch of these Wagner mercenaries got what was coming to them, but I am a firm believer in karma, and I believe these Malayan rebels were the dealers of karma on that day in July. That's pretty much all I got. This is a completely different kind of video. I hope you guys like this. I want to post more stuff like this because it's a lot of fun to research and talk about, and let's talk about it in the comments as well. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We're trying to get this channel monetized, and you guys have been awesome about it. Don't forget, my email is always open if you have any questions regarding the Legion or volunteering in Ukraine, because I do have a lot of connects out there still. I appreciate you guys. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.